guys, welcome back to Caitlin Bowman. Be fiercely authentic, live your truth. So I hope you guys are doing well. Today is going to be a Q&A video. Originally, I had filmed a 35-minute long video where I was cooking dinner and actually answering your questions while I was cooking dinner. And some of the questions were coming in as I was cooking. So I do apologize because I filmed it and there was no audio. So I'm like, what am I going to do? So I decided, I'm like, okay, I'll just make some coffee because I have a lot of work to do tonight anyways. So we're going to have coffee and chat. So I hope that's just as good. I know it's not really, but bear with me. So I'm going to try to get through as many questions as I can. Okay, so I'm not going to name names. I'm just going to answer the questions. I don't know if people want their name to be out there or not, so I'm just going to assume you don't for now. So this person is asking, what is your advice when it comes to dealing with negative people? Okay, that's a really good question. Here's the thing. I solely believe in the idea that everyone is you pushed out to a certain degree. So what I mean by that is people are going to respond to us in the way that we are responding to ourselves, in the way that we're thinking about ourselves, but it's internally, right? So sometimes we could think, for instance, that we're a really positive person or we're really confident, but maybe deep down in our inner talking is very negative. You know, maybe we beat ourselves up. Maybe we're mean to ourselves, we're rude to ourselves, we're negative to ourselves. So what happens is because the world is an outer reflection of what's going on internally, we are going to draw in people that are going to mirror that back to us. And sometimes it's really subtle, right? Like sometimes we don't realize we're being kind of negative. Like I actually had this experience today. You know, as positive as I try to be, of course I have some negative self-talk. And I was at the market today and the checkout girl was so mean to me. I don't know what I did. I have no idea what I did. But she was really cruel and I thought to myself, why am I drawing in this experience, right? So I realized that, okay, maybe there's something that I need to look at within myself. Maybe there's some sort of self-criticism that I need to deal with, right? Now, you don't have to be so extreme. I think if people do treat you a certain way, obviously you want to have boundaries, but definitely take that time to look at, you know, am I doing this to myself in some way? Like, am I generating some sort of negative mindset that I need to maybe let go of a little bit? Okay, so I hope that helps. Okay, so someone says, do you have any protection techniques for empaths? Okay, I took an empath course before and I thought it was really interesting. And I don't have a protection one per se. There is one, but I can't remember exactly how to do it, so I don't want to give you guys the wrong information. But one thing that I was taught was empaths especially get depleted. So their energy becomes really depleted because we take on the energy of other people. So one thing that you can actually do is you can actually draw your energy back to you. And I teach some of my clients this, and I know it sounds kind of weird and it seems really simple, but actually the act of drawing energy back into your body, like simply like this, can take that energy that we so freely give out sometimes as empaths, not recognizing, not knowing, right? And we draw that energy back into ourselves and you'll start to feel a little bit more elevated. You'll start to feel that you feel more empowered. Like for me specifically, I'll know if I'm giving my energy out or if I'm focusing on things that don't serve me, because energetically I'll just feel depleted, or I'll feel really tired, or I'll feel like something has sort of just sucked the life out of me. And it's most likely because I've been fixated on something that is not empowering, or I've given my attention to other people's emotions or feelings, or, right? Whatever it is for empaths, because empaths are like sponges and they'll take on that information and the emotions of the people around them. So that act of just drawing your energy back into yourself can be really helpful. Okay, so someone asked, what is the best way to get rid of negative thoughts? Okay, so that is a really good question. I talk about this specifically in my self-love course, because the self-love course is essentially a drawing you back to your true essence. Because in life, we embody these physical bodies and, you know, we can adorn them and do whatever it is that we want to do to our physical bodies, but we have to understand that we are more than that, right? There's a soul within this body. There's so much more going on. And when we start to think that we're just the body, we lose track and we get so caught up in our mind, which is oftentimes negative thinking, right? So I call it like the egoic thought pattern, essentially. Eckhart Tolle calls it the pain body, right? It's just an accumulation of belief systems and thoughts that don't serve us, essentially. So in order to let go of these negative thought patterns, we have to connect back to our true essence, which is our soul. So that means meditation, mindfulness. That's pretty much it. Now, there are multiple ways to kind of get to that point to connect to your soul energy, but the fastest way is to just be mindful, which means that taking your attention to where you are right now, right? Because fear and negativity can really only exist in the mind. It doesn't exist in the present moment. When we are fully present and we don't really have thoughts about things, we're just experiencing life, there's no room for negativity, right? It's just presence. It's a sense of peace. So my course specifically talks about how to peel back the layers of our thought patterns and our belief systems so that we can get right to the core of who we are. And I'll tell you this, someone who makes it a daily practice to connect to that core essence, it is the most peaceful feeling. It is serenity. It is full acceptance. And it's something that goes beyond just positive thinking or even thrill or excitement from, say, getting a manifestation. It's so different. It's a sense of complete acceptance. And I remember, I think this was on Oprah. This was an older interview, but Jennifer Aniston was on this Oprah interview, and she was talking about how there was one moment in time where she remembers she felt complete peace. And she goes, I'll always remember that moment. And what she said she experienced was she was sitting there with her friend at yoga, and she just said, I've never felt this feeling before. She goes, I feel like I don't want to be anywhere other than I am. And I'm getting chills actually saying that because this is the truth. What we're all searching for is to be able to be completely embodied in the present moment. And that is the way to surrender negative thinking. And when we let go of all the egoic forms and the thought forms, we tap into this beautiful soul energy that we all have access to. And if this is really the spiritual journey, and if we just take the time to slow down and to connect to that, we can see that there is salvation and freedom that comes from that. So I know that was kind of the long-winded answer, but I hope that was helpful. All right, so let's see. Okay, so someone asked, can you manifest in 17 seconds? All right, I think I had a video about this. Did I not? I had a video how to manifest in, maybe it was 30 seconds or less or something like that. So I say yes, definitely, because I have done it. So when it comes to manifestation, I do still talk about manifestation on this channel. However, I talk about manifestation with the essence of consciousness in there. And the way to manifest very quickly is to first have your energy lined up. So there is what is called a buffer of time, but if we can line up our energy first, meaning that we get into synchronicity with the universe first, and then we ask for a desire, then it can come very fast. But if we have a lot of resistance and then we're trying to manifest something in a really short period of time, it's unlikely that it'll happen. But the other key component to manifesting really fast is to be connected to your true essence, right? So that being of consciousness, which Joe Dispenza talks about. So he doesn't call it, well, he might call it consciousness, but he talks about the mind and heart coherence, essentially, right? And pretty much it's the state of meditation, which is the same as consciousness. So from that place, we manifest very quickly because we are connected to source. So can you manifest in 17 seconds? Absolutely. However, I wouldn't put that time frame on. I think sometimes when we put a time frame on, we're putting expectations, and anytime we put an expectation on a manifestation, it slows it down. Right? So it's kind of a paradox. So we have someone here who said, when did you know you were ready for an awakening? Okay, I was never really ready. I don't think you're ever ready. I remember going through what I would call the dark night of the soul, and I think a lot of people would call it the dark night of the soul. I remember going through a lot of depression and feeling very helpless, very hopeless, wanting to hold on to things that I knew I needed to let go of, and mainly egoic things that I felt strengthened my identity that I was really scared to let go of. And I remember finally letting go of some of these things, and I felt this sort of freedom. It didn't come right away, but I started to feel a freedom by letting go of all of these things that I thought I was, right? Because as we grow and evolve in this physical form, we start to attach ourselves to the physical things. Like we start to attach ourselves to our occupation, the things that we own, our appearance, our personality. And while all of these things are part of us, yes, they are, but they're temporary, right? And what the spiritual journey teaches you is the eternal journey. It's the soul is eternal. It's not going anywhere. Your soul will probably incarnate into many different bodies, many different lifetimes, and you probably have already lived many different lifetimes. And so really the awakening, I don't think you're ever ready. I think when your soul is, I guess, at that point where it's like, okay, enough is enough, you're just forced to wake up. And if you resist it, you go through the dark night of the soul. So I always tell people, if you're going through the dark night of the soul and spirit or divine is telling you to like let go of things, whether it's a relationship, whether it's some sort of material thing, let it go. Because it's like letting go of that thing is the key to your freedom. And also too, the spiritual journey is really about letting go of all attachments. And we can only do that when we know our true essence. When we know that we are all things and everything, it's so easy to live a life that is free of attachment. We're not clinging on to things anymore. We're not trying to run from things anymore out of fear, right? We're just completely centered in who we are. And then it's almost like solid. And then the world sort of spins around you. And I don't mean that in like a selfish way. It's more of an understanding of who you are as a spiritual being. And you just see the world and you experience it, but you remain centered because you're not attaching yourself to things that are temporary, right? So if we attach ourselves to things like, say, our job, there's always going to be a fear factor there because what if we don't have our job tomorrow? What if something happens? What if there's some sort of financial crisis? What if our boss fires us, and so then our identity is in that job. And then if our job's gone, where's our identity? So we want to identify ourselves with things that are eternal, which the only thing is the soul. So I know that was a bit of a tangent too, but that really is a spiritual process. And I don't think you're ever ready. I just think that your soul will tell you when it's time, and you can either resist it or just go with the flow. Okay, so the next question is, hi, new follower, and wanted to know if your program can help me believing I'm worthy. Yes, absolutely. That is actually what the program is designed to do. It's designed to help you to connect to your authentic nature, to step into personal empowerment, to balance out your feminine and masculine energies within. And thus, when you do that, you start to magnetize things in and people in that are connected to you on a soul level. So you'll start to feel extremely fulfilled. Things like your soul passions and soul partners will all just gravitate towards you, because I am a firm believer in that we don't attract what we want in life, right? We attract what we are and who we are. So when we are in complete resonance with ourselves, when we are whole, when we know our truth, guess what? The world is going to show that back to us, right? Okay, so we have here, where would be your favorite place in the world to travel? Random question, smiley face. No, it's a good question. Definitely Bali. I've been wanting to do Bali for a while now. The tattoo that I have here is the Balinese symbol for peace. So I've always been really drawn to Bali. It's really odd. Part of me feels like I lived there in a past life, but so Bali, definitely want to do that. Who inspires you most? There are a lot of people that inspire me. I would say, in terms of my spiritual journey and my spiritual awakening, I would say that Eckhart Tolle has been the most profound person when it comes to that. And in fact, actually, I'm moving to Vancouver, where Eckhart Tolle lives. Actually, I took my first ever Eckhart Tolle seminar group type thing when I was in Vancouver about 3 years ago. I already knew about him and that kind of thing, but it was just this group where all of us met up and discussed his teachings. And I remember sitting there and thinking, this is home. Like, I remember thinking that this is what I resonate with. This is the truth. And so since then, I mean, I've always loved Eckhart's teachings. I think it's the ultimate truth. I don't think you can deny what he's saying, and he's very egoless, so it's really easy to listen to him. His book, The Power of Now, as well, I read that almost every day, so I highly suggest that if you don't have that book or if you don't know about it. Most people do at this point, but if you haven't, I highly suggest reading that book. Okay, so let's move on. I know it's off topic, but are you single? I'm not saying. Some things you gotta keep to yourself, like you gotta have a little mystery, don't you? Okay, so this is a really good question. So This girl's saying, a bit of a broad question, but how do you know you're on the right path? Is it purely intuition? So first of all, I actually do have a video on that. So if you're talking about your spiritual path, which I'm assuming you are if you're talking about intuition, I have a video on that. I think it's called The 4 Signs that you're on the right path, spiritual evolution or something like that. But essentially, yes, it is intuition, but it's also just kind of an innate knowing, right? I'll kind of explain, like I remember a point in time where I was on the wrong path and I knew. And the reason why I knew is because things kept going wrong. So one thing specifically that the universe kept showing me is, I remember I was heading down the wrong path. I was in a lot of like bad habits, not hanging out with the right people. And I remember I kept getting in like little mini car accidents. Like my car tire I would keep like hitting a pothole and my tire would break down, or like someone would back into I was at an IKEA and someone backed into my car. And I kept having these little mini car accidents. And I remember thinking like, what are you trying to tell me? Like what? And I remember I started making a few subtle changes where I stopped hanging out with certain people. On top of that, I just started letting go of some of my bad habits. I'm not going to get into my bad habits, but I had some bad habits. So I let go of those, and then I noticed how life started flowing again. I stopped getting into any accidents. And so sometimes in life, you have to just look at this like subtle things that are happening. So if you're on the right path, you'll notice that things just start to happen pretty easily. Like you kind of feel like you're gliding through life. You don't feel like you're hitting roadblock after roadblock. Not to say that like you're not going to have challenges, but when you're on the right path, there's sort of this natural flow. And it's like the right people will just show up, or like the money will just be there, or someone will be passing by and they'll just say the right thing at the right time. And it's just, you feel like you're in this sort of like beautiful game with the universe. And that's how you'll know that you're on the right path. Okay, so last question, and this is a really good question. So this person's asking how to release trauma and shame from your past. So first off, I'll say that be easy on yourself. Have patience with yourself. It's so key, patience. Trauma is like, I like to think of it as kind of layered, you know? It's like peeling off an onion. You think that you've healed something, and then all of a sudden you get triggered and there's something else there. So having patience with yourself when you are healing from traumatic experiences is key. But the other thing as well is realizing that from your traumatic experiences, you've created belief patterns that probably don't serve you, right? And that's what's negatively impacting you now. It's not the trauma from your past, right? It's the beliefs now, and even the shame factor, right? So there's something called toxic shame that, gosh, what's her name? I can't remember her name. If you guys know her name, definitely post it down below. She's been on Oprah a few times. She's got a really great book, but who doesn't, right? But no, there's this term called toxic shame, and it's this feeling of like, shame normally is thinking we've done something wrong, so we feel shame. But toxic shame is like, I am something wrong. So there's a huge difference there. And if we're walking around feeling like I am something wrong, or like there's something wrong with me, right? Most people who carry the belief that they're broken, they're damaged, there's something wrong with them, they've experienced trauma. And they've accumulated that sort of belief pattern from an experience that they were probably too young to understand and just comprehend and process properly, right? So oftentimes if we have parental figures or parents or anyone older influencing us when we're really young, and we don't have that ability, like that coherence at that point, we will sort of take on beliefs that are not ours. And then what happens is if we never release that, if we never let it go, it moves from adolescence to adulthood, right? And then we always carry this belief around that there's something wrong with us, and it just feels like that. That's something that I've had for a very long time until I realized that it was just a thought, right? It's just a thought pattern. And a thought pattern or a belief essentially can be changed. And the way to do this is to, again, remove ourselves from our thought patterns. And that's why I talk so much about consciousness, because the more conscious we become, the less we are triggered and the less we are sort of, what's the word, embodied in that old programming. It's like we're stepping out of that old self and we're seeing things from a new perspective. But I also suggest, if you are dealing with, extreme trauma and shame and all of that, there's nothing wrong with going to get help working with either, like for instance, I've had therapy and I've had spiritual coaching, and I think the combination of both is really helpful. You know, having someone who has more of like a clinical psychological view, but then also having that spiritual component as well can be really helpful. So, I mean, obviously, if you're able to afford the additional help in counseling, I highly suggest that. It doesn't hurt, you know? And I think that honestly anyone should. I think that pretty much everyone that lives in this physical world, because of the collective fear consciousness, could probably use a little coaching or counseling. So I also suggest that as well. So I do hope that answered your questions. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you guys enjoyed today's video, be sure to give me a thumbs up. If you want to see more in Q&As, definitely let me know in the comments down below, and follow on Instagram so you can put your question in. If I didn't get to your question, I'm sorry. I'm going to save them all, and hopefully I'll get to them in the next Q&A that I do. All right? So I'm sending you guys absolute love and light, and I'll see you soon. Bye.